This is, as usual, this is a talk that didn't turn out the way I originally intended because of things, and we're just going to go in. I am the Joe of Puzzled by Joe, and then we're just going to go for it because it's a quick half hour. So this talk changed because of something that happened in the last couple months. So I'm just going to read this. The joy of this. I thought this was a great example of the joy of the solo indie dev roller coaster life. So on August 4th. Something happened with one of my distributors that I thought I would lose about $20,000 of my expected earnings this year. So that's kind of a bummer. That was down the roller coaster. And then at the end of September, there was actually hope that I'd probably break about even. It wouldn't really affect things. What I thought, on August 4th. And then at the start of October, it's now more likely that I'm going to probably make an extra 10 or 20K this year, which is kind of nice. All of this led me to do the following haiku, and this talk got changed a little bit because of it, but here's the haiku I wrote. These fluctuations are not under my control, still the tortoise crawls. And for people who have noticed, for other talks, I'm the tortoise. I'm not the hare, I am the tortoise. 12 years on Clutter continues to be a roller coaster ride that exceeds expectations. Okay, so for people who don't know what Clutter is an idea I got 11 years ago, and it's basically a non-verbal hidden object game, and you just pick two things that match, like the two mouses, the two pink cakes, the two little mosaic things, etc. And over the years, I got lucky and decided to do a sequel, which led to doing more and more, and the franchise effect has actually kept me alive. But this is how the games have evolved. This is from Clutter 2, where I started adding specialized objects. Clutter 3, this is from Clutter 5. Clutter 6, where I hired 2 local people to help me with the story and art. Clutter 7, that's me taking any picture and turning it into a Clutter game. With Clutter 8, I started getting really experimental of what my customers and fan base would tolerate. And I love some of these, but I was really careful of how I presented the smileys and tried not to use them too much or whatever. And sure enough, it was a love-hate relationship with most of my fan base. And then this is just from the next game. Here's another nice little object set that some people just loved. It's the cats. And then this is another one that blew their mind, was these white cubes and stuff. This is from Clutter 12, the prior game to this last one. And these are all clocks and just a different way. And as you can see, there's a variety. This is all from my last game where I finally went full screen. It's a 1280 by 1280 by 720 widescreen, basically, 16 by 9. And again, I was just trying to show the variation of what I've done over the years. And each Clutter game is a mix and match of some familiar stuff and some old stuff. In fact, the basic Clutter game is still there. People want it. Some people don't want the motion, don't want the cartoony characters. They want to play, the Clutter game. But the objects are a bit more sharp than they were 11 years ago, etc., etc. Okay, and that is part of the version that I just released called Clutter's Greatest Hits, and it was the 13th Clutter game, and it remarkably made it to Big Fish Games, the top game on Big Fish Games, and they are still my biggest distributor, and I was shocked that I went to number 1. I don't know if it has to do more with their reorganization lately or how good the game is, but it's still at number 2 a week and a half later, and I tend to believe it's a mixture of both. But Clutter finally hit number 1 on Big Fish. The best any prior game did was, I think one popped up to number 3 for a day, and several popped at 5 and 6 for a week or so. But so this is really, really nice, and I got some really great early reviews where, I'm over 5.5 stars, so that's just great. I did a talk a few years ago. Actually, I did the investment conference, and I was told to start with the money. to get people to listen to me. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to do a quick version of Show Me the Money from Mr. Cruz there. This is the first time I think this is after 5 games, I'm really noticing what I call the franchise effect, that every game I put out bumps sales to those earlier games. If I'd only done one clutter game, that first clutter might have made 60,000. It only made 50,000 after 15 months, and if it brought 10 more in and I never did another clutter game, I'd be surprised. But I did do other clutter games, and each clutter game that goes out bumps sales to that earlier game, and that first clutter game is still bringing in $1,000 a month for me from all my distributors, and it's somewhere between 250,000 now to 300,000. I think it's brought in for me. Just amazing that it's going that strong. So 10 years. This is just the curve. You can see it's going a little bit, and I'm going to show you one more of these that has a point, but I used this in a talk a while back and told one of my favorite jokes, which is, the dumbest decision I ever made was quit my job and make the first clutter game. And that's because that first clutter game only made me 50,000, and it took me a year, and I could have made 100,000 working for whoever I was working for at the time. So it was not a good use of my time. But the smartest decision I ever made was keep going and make that second clutter game. Because if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be in the situation I'm in now. So, Show You the Money. So it actually took me, after deciding to start and do that first game, to the point where it finally brought in over 100,000. It took 2 years and 9 months. And again, it wouldn't have even done that if I didn't do the second one. And my first 500,000 net to me took 6 years from the moment to start, 6 years and 4 months to where I crossed that mark. However, the second 500,000 only took 3 years and 8 months. And the third 500,000 I accomplished in less than 3 years. The last 500,000, I'm now at 1.5 million. Was done. The last 500,000 was done in less than 3 years, and I'm pretty much at that pace, and I don't see that pace slowing down too much, because this is what my franchise effect looks like. The first two, flat, and then they built up enough that I really was, nice little hurdle, and then I finally went to Unity, and Unity lets me put up games a little bit faster and nicer and so forth. And I finally got that curve to really bump up one more time. And even though it doesn't look like it's really hitting the top, that's because Clutter 13's big chunk hasn't come out yet. But those are truly good slopes, and the slope is what matters. Okay, and sometimes it feels like I'm Sisyphus putting up this rock up the hill, but the nice thing is, because of the extra clutter, each clutter game sort of, ratchets up. So that it's not like the ball falls all the way down the hill. And just a reminder, I am the little turtle. I am, I just help pushing that rock up ever so slightly each and every day. Okay, and again, you can see that the slope is kind of the Sisyphus slope. So I like that kind of thing. Okay, so the rest of this talk, I was going to talk about the good stuff and bad stuff in all my prior talks, and I actually watched all my prior talks, which I'm not sure I recommend that to anybody in a short period of time. But what I decided to do instead of that is I am really just going to hit sort of the highlights and maybe a little bit of a different light, and there's a couple things I've changed and thought about since then. So that's what we're going to do. A lot of this talk is part of one of my favorite talks, but there is pieces from everything, and that's why you'll see why headers, the back screen doesn't match, because this is all a conglomeration from prior talks and stuff. Okay, one of the things I tried to do is I try to break up talks with either, pop quizzes or what else did I have? Oh, it's a trap and send datas or whatever, which you'll see a bit of. But in one of them, I did pop quizzes, and I think I had 10 of them, which I wanted, to ask a question and then give a, maybe a funny, humorous, but a sticky and an interesting answer. So in this one was, what part of game dev do you enjoy the most? And it's really putting in stuff that my old bosses wouldn't let me put in the game. So what does that really look like? I thought I'd do an example here, and this is new. Is I had these donuts, which I love as an object thing, and then because of that, I decided to make a periodic table of donuts and try to explain to my fan base why they're such a great object set. And I know this little cheesy periodic table of donuts is something my producers would have gone, no way, Joe, you cannot put that in the game. So of course it went in the game. Also, the stories, there's no way my producers would have let the stories evolve to what they have. And in the last couple of games especially, they've become very personal snippets of me trying to figure out how I'm going to stay happy as I get older in life. And I think a lot of my customers resonate with it because anything I mentioned that's nostalgic, they have their own example of something. And they also worry about this. My typical customer, the true, really hardcore Clutter fans are women, 50 and 60-ish. So their concerns, they also have concerns about this. So I'm just going to read just this quick one here. Every time you play a Clutter level, you get a picture and you get a quote and you get a little snippet. And that's how I tell my stories. So in this one it says, I used to love to play basketball and ping pong, but those activities are more error prone than they used to be, and so I play rarely. And then it goes on and on about how I still like reading and other things. So again, very personal, very true. And somebody playing this game, I've had feedback that they feel like I'm playing it with them, that I'm just sort of a companion, and again, they seem to like it. And especially this last couple of games, they seem to really like the meta story and so forth. Okay. Pleasing the haters. So this is one of my favorite pieces of earliest advice. It's a trap. You do not want to please the hater. If somebody, in fact, the last guy I think speaking mentions this briefly, but you don't want to go, it might have been 2 speakers back, but you don't want to please the haters. What you want to do is you want to listen to the people that love your game and then remove any annoyance they're telling you about. So forget the haters, because you're never going to convince them to like your game. In fact, I'm happy that I have a love me or hate me game. If you have a game that just, people go, oh, yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good. And then your game really sucks. Okay? You want people that really go, this is pointless, why would anybody play it? Where other people just love it. Okay. So, here's one of the annoying things, I think, again, annoying point of view, is I've always heard that, from game developers, it's hard to find the fun, it's hard to find the fun. I got so sick of hearing this, I wanted to share this little piece. Because this is my mindset, and it's right there with pleasing the haters and, removing annoyances. I finally say to them, but it's easy to find the not fun and stay the hell away from it. Okay, and that's really it. Forget the find the fun. You know why the game's fun. Keep it fun, but also anything you're making an assumption about that's annoying, remove it. If people that love your game are complaining about something, figure a way to remove that complaint. Okay, here's one last one. I did a Star Trek reference. I had to do a Star Wars reference. This is from one of my talks. This was called Snippets of Wisdom from Zen Data. And here's this one that says, if everything matters, nothing matters. And if nothing matters, everything matters. And what this is don't get obsessed about any one thing in your game. What you have to have is a level of quality that's across your game. So if you have something ugly that people are notice, you have to remove, you have to get rid of it. But not everything has to be super perfect and polished, etc., etc. It's more important to get the game out than that. And again, this is really, if everything matters, really no one specific thing matters. And if nothing matters, you really do have to you have to have a certain level of quality with everything. And that's what this thing is telling you. Okay. And that fits right into perfect is the enemy of the good. The point of the game, you got to get the game out at some point. And it can't be perfect. It's never going to be, or you'll never release it. It's not about being perfect. It's about effort in the right direction. When you bring that effort every single day, and remember the tortoise, that's where transformation happens. That's how real change occurs. Okay. Now here's one where I don't regret the screen. I ended one of my talks with this, but I'm going to comment about it afterwards. So the best game I ever played is called The Game of Making Original IP. The score is in sales dollars, not for exposure, not for how much your friends love it, not for how beautiful it is, not for awards, not for finishing it, not for how much fun for you it is, not for how much you learn doing it. Digital original IP and the long tail, the gifts that keep on giving. And the more I thought about this I wanted to make a point that, people talk about they want their game to be a success, but then they don't think in these terms. But you don't have to make your game. It's fine to make a game you love knowing it might not make money. That's okay. And I don't think I used to think of that, but it's okay. It's not the difference between a hobbyist and a professional. I believe you can still be a professional, but realize that the market is so hard that maybe your game is you're not gonna be able to find the market for your game. Now, you better not be quitting your day job, and you still, and you better have fun doing it, but it's okay if you keep scoring a different way. Okay. And that's the big thing I contradicted myself. Okay. So the other thing, and I changed this one a little bit, is I wanted to show that failure is relative, and I wanted to share, some of the crap I went through before I got to this. And again, I think of myself still as just a moderate success. I do okay. That's how I figure it. Anyways, I worked for other people for, 19 years. And to me, that's a fail. Okay. It's okay. Some people have careers, and I worked for a lot of other people, but for what I'm doing now versus that's a fail. I wrote my first game in 2.5 years, and it's this crappy little game that's just horrible, and it made maybe $80, just horrible. But it got me 3 job offers. I then got lucky, and I worked for a company that got bought out by AOL right before AOL boomed, and I got funny money, so I could quit and actually do nothing but be in indie for 4 years, and I failed miserably with a bunch of cruddy games that are just color-based and just horrible. I made 9 games. At the end of 9 games, I started thinking, if I can't get somebody to come to my website to buy one of my 9 games, making a 10th one, maybe isn't the smartest thing. So I got lucky, and I ended up, these 9 games at least got me another job offer. They made me no money. Okay. I was a hired gun, but at least it was my design from 2005 to 2009. And then I asked myself the big question, due to my wife actually, can I do it myself? And I had a good enough idea, which was clutter. I felt it was enough with the basic idea to just play with it for at least a couple of years. I didn't think it would be 10 or 11, but I'm amazed at how deep that mechanic is and how much you can really push that mechanic. For 7 years, I did the first 7 games, and I did it all with this older system. I finally went to Unity. Oh, sorry, before that, somewhere along the line, I really did start thinking in the terms of the business of the games instead of, just putting out the next game. And that definitely helped things. And, that's probably around C4, C5 or whatever. I realized I was in really for the long haul, and I started thinking about how can I do anything better. Okay, then I released, let's see, that's 8, 9, 10 in 3 years. And then I really got even more experimental, where I did a really super hard clutter just to see whether people would accept it, and they did. And then I got asked by Big Fish to do a collector's edition. So now I'm starting to really feel like I'm succeeding, and I'm doing, I'm definitely making good money doing this, so I feel like a success. And then the greatest hits hit #1, so I definitely feel like a success today. And I don't know what's next. I want, there's going to be a Clutter 14. There might be a Diamonds game, something I designed from 14 years ago. I might get bought out. It's really kind of an interesting life right now. Okay. Now, this is a slide I used in one of my games when I started to think about story in general and how, living your life as your own story character, is that a good or bad thing, etc., etc. Overall, I think it's a good thing. And this is, by the way, this is Morpheus from the Sandman. And anyway, so the rest of this is all about story and how do you empower your life. And a lot of it's from a talk I gave called "How Do You Succeed at Anything," and some of it is definitely refined and snippet and cut down. So here we go. I just wanted you to currently know that I am in the middle of this talk, but you are always in the middle of your story, your own story. Okay. In one of my talks, I said, when you were 7 years old, you made a decision that affected the rest of your life. And if you want to re-examine that decision, you might actually change your life. I put it a little different, but that's the gist of it. And I took a few slides before I came back to tell you the answer of what that choice was, but we're going quick here. So here you go. The choice was, is that glass of water half full or half empty? And you really, before you're 7 years old, you decided this. You became an optimist or a pessimist. And it wasn't really a choice. It's just something you felt, I think. And the question is there a third choice between just feeling, or actually is there a third choice between half full and half empty? And the question, can you make a choice that's not just your feeling, right? Can you get beyond your gut feelings and stuff? And I talked a lot about the pause and the possibilities. There's a moment between, there's a moment between something happening to you and you reacting that you can get in the way of and change your life. Okay. And can you choose realism and so forth? So I went further with another talk. I wanted to tell you that basically, there's a truth about this glass of water, but you can also tell yourself lies about it. And it's actually memories. Every time you access your memory, you adjust it a little bit. And it's actually the story you tell yourself about the external world that is really what you carry with you everywhere. Okay, and that story is very, powerful. And the question is, are you, how much are you mucking with it and how much are you dealing with reality, etc. But the story you tell yourself, again, and reinforce, is what becomes important. Okay, so some really good advice. If you're going to be an indie, you better be brutally self-honest with yourself. You're, honest. And here's the questions I just threw out, and I think they're really good, so I'm going to repeat them. How do you handle stress? How do you handle uncertainty? How do you handle negative feedback? How much do you procrastinate? Do you think you make your own luck? How long can you go without succeeding? Can you accept failure? What scares you the most? Are you talented enough? Are you creative enough? Are you a problem solver? What are you risking by doing it? What are you risking by not doing it? Can you see yourself actually succeeding? And you better have good answers for that question. Okay. Next little piece, I almost skipped this, but I'm going to be really quick on this. Because somebody actually wanted, they requested, they liked it so much. So there's Maslow's needs hierarchies. That's basically, in a nutshell, you can't self-actualize and work on your self-esteem if you're starving to death from food, right? Food and your physical needs, come first. And I thought, really, that's also true of an indie. And I came up with this triangle, and my advice is don't fight the triangle. You got to work on that base first. So, and the base was, you need to pay the rent. Don't quit your day job. You need to buy tools and equipment, or you can't create a game. And you want some dev friends around because you want to feel good while you're doing things, and they sort of correspond to the love and belonging. And then you want to get competent at what you're doing, and most people do that by cloning other games, and that's good, and that's sort of your self-esteem. But then you finally want to create your own original product, which is more like self-actualization. You want your own self-expression. You don't want to just copy something. You want new ideas that are your own, and you want to implement them. Okay. Boom. Now here is the crux of the best idea I had ever, I think. And it's basically, I got this notion that even when I was a kid, I knew I was going to have a better life someday. That I grew up in a small town. We weren't poor by any means, but I knew I was going to go to college. I knew I was going to leave that hometown. And I started thinking in terms of whenever I had free time, I wanted to do stuff that, instead of just dubbing around, watching TV or whatever, I wanted to do something that upped my odds of having a better future. And I call that the lottery ticket of time. So whenever I had free time, I'd read a book, I'd learn a new skill, improve at something, or I just imagine my better future. And that's a joke from one of the talks that I won't explain. But the whole reason this works is that the future is uncertain, okay? And this is the way I put it. I think this is, a good thing to memorize. Everything you do is in preparation for a future path that you can't predict. I don't think anybody can argue with this statement. It's true. Good or bad, dubbing around, whatever. What you do today may or may not pay off for you tomorrow, and you will never know exactly why, but you might as well up your odds, and that's the lottery ticket of time. Okay, it starts with belief. We are self-fulfilling prophecy machines. Remember that story we tell ourselves? For good or bad, we do exactly what we believe we can do. Without belief, there can be no action. Without belief, we are just talkers, not doers. And there's that Sisyphus guy again. And this is what The Rock says. I looked up, there's an expression, an overnight success takes 10 years. And this is what The Rock says. Success isn't overnight. It's when every day you get a little better than the day before. It all adds up. And I agree with that. And there's my turtle. There's my cartoon turtle saying he agrees with The Rock. Now, it's a matter of perspective. Once again, I am currently at the end of the talk. You are still in the middle of your own story. You are the person that chooses every day how you perceive that glass of water of life. You are. You have tons of control. You can't control everything, but you control how you react to something, and you can control how you spend your time. You can Netflix and chill, or you can work on your game, or you can work on your next game, or whatever. Okay? Your path is your own. I wish you all safe travels. I ended one of my talks with that, and I like it, and it's true. You are the final person that decides, what your life is going to be. You're not 7 years old. You're not even in high school anymore. You're out of college. You're the buck stops with you. There you go. And that was my Hindsight's Greatest Hits. And yes, I am the turtle. I am Joe Casavoff. And I'm the cartoon turtle as well. And that's my talk.
All right. Great stuff. And I never knew that Sisyphus was pushing the rock up the hill on both ends.
Yeah, I didn't realize that when I just realized that while doing this. I was calling him Dwayne Johnson before in my mind, and I don't know why I called him The Rock, and then it hit me. I almost laughed out loud. It was so stupid.
All right. Well, great views back. We've appreciated the looks.
Happy accident.
We love the looks back at what worked and where the mess-ups were, too. The unstinting look. The good self-reflection. And you're probably the only person who will say that game devs don't need to be delusional to do what they do and must be realists instead. So, yeah, really enjoyed it. But the one thing you don't have enough of is voice acting, and that's our next presentation. So we're going to move Joe into the chat. You'll get to see Joe at Siege tomorrow. Remember to come out tomorrow. For
sure, and I have tons of books to give away.
Oh, yeah, giveaways from the Puzzle Meister himself. All right. With that, we'll get Bob Carter, Ian O'Donnell up here for voice acting. Thank you, Joe.